years. I joined Keller Williams. I've been wanting to join Keller Williams more than 3 years ago, but I live in Colusa, and I primarily work the Colusa County area. So if you don't know who I am, and if you hear Colusa, think of me, Carmelita, great resource. I also have my own office in Colusa. I've been licensed since 2006. I started when the market hit peak. After that, I sold one house before the peak, and everything shut down. That's when I started. So I figured if I can't learn how to swim now, I'm done, So I learned when it was going down. So, and it was a hard year for me, but actually it ended up doing very well on a down market. So I'm glad you guys are all here, and I understand you're new. You haven't got licensed yet?
No, I'm in the process.
You're in the process, and how about you?
I'm new, but I have a license.
You're new, okay, how long have you been licensed?
Since the 14th of July.
Oh, wow, congratulations. And Jillian, you've been here for a while, so okay. Well, thank you for being up early this morning and ready to go. So I'm a little bit nervous. I get really nervous in front of crowds. So if I kind of stutter a little bit, I apologize in advance, okay?
This isn't a crowd now.
No, but it is to me. It is to me. Believe me, it's like back here. It's really tight. So anyway, this is, we're here, and this is the make and receive offers. And we're going to go through the way Ignite has it, but I'm also going to give you some of my personal experiences. And I think my personal experiences will probably give you more insight of really how the market is and how you can interpret it. And that's what I'll do. So I'll put some of my own personal stuff in there as well, okay? I understand that there's some checkpoints here, and I don't know if the other agents have been going through that. So you haven't been doing that, Jillian? You're going, no? Well, I'm going to hold you accountable for that, because I have to be accountable to my own coach, and I have to give her numbers. In fact, she already emailed me this morning that I have not given her my numbers. So I'm going to ask you guys to turn to page 9.2 and also go ahead and put in there your goals, your results, adding people to your database. Do you see that? How many new people from the last week have you added to your database? Have connected with 10 people. Connecting with 10 people doesn't necessarily mean on the phone talking to them on one-on-one. It could be on face-to-face. It could be a text chat that you're actually going back and forth. If you just text somebody and there's no response, that doesn't count. So if you're on the phone, leave a message, that doesn't count. If you see a person and you talk, but you don't talk real estate, that doesn't count. So if you're there, always think about being on purpose. Most of the time that you get actually prospects is when you're talking to them on one-on-one. You can start off with personal, and then, hey, do you know anybody? I've got buyers and I've got sellers looking to purchase property. Do you know anybody that's looking to buy, sell, or invest in real estate today? If you don't, that's okay. But if you do hear of somebody, have them give me a call, or text me and I'll give them a call. Okay? Always have that conversation. If you practice your scripts over and over, you'll understand that it gets easier. It's easier to ask for the business, even when you're at family reunions. Some of if I go to, everybody knows what I do. Most of the people, so generally they'll ask me a question. Once they ask me a question, and I just move it forward and ask them a question too, and ask for the business. Okay, so if you haven't done that, do that. And if you do get a lead from one of those people, send them a thank you note. So always have thank you cards. They're easy to buy. You can buy them at the dollar store, buy some stamps, and the minute you get that, make sure that person's in your database and send them a thank you card. Okay? It's just recognition, because what happens is they remember you. Next time they sometimes they keep the thank you cards, and they'll call you if they know or hear somebody. So always do that. So I guess your goal is to do at least 10 people into your database, 10 people that you actually contact, which really only means 2 people if you're doing the week, 5 days a week. There's only 2 people that you would have to contact. Or is this per day? No, this is daily. I'm sorry. This is daily, so you have to do 50. That's not bad. And also, are you looking on the MLS to see what your area is, to see what houses are coming on the market, which ones are going pending? Not only which ones are available, but also which ones go pending. Also, which ones go actually close, because that actually becomes your new market trend. Okay? So you're watching all 3, the actives, the pendings, and the sold. In the last week, have you had any appointments? I know you guys are brand new, but the ones that are licensed, have you had any appointments yet? Are you struggling with any of that?
Just haven't really, done a lot of lead generation, and that's what I'm in the process of trying to get my schedule.
I'm about numbers, and when I came to Keller Williams, I learned that everything is about numbers. So it's just knowing how many people you need to touch and actually ask for the business to know how many people you're going to get a lead from. So after talking to 10 people, I usually get at least 1 to 2 leads. 1 to 2 leads would lead them to possibly something else. Maybe they don't, they drop off. But a lead is just a knowledge of somebody either that's looking to buy, looking to sell, or is just looking to know what they need to do. And that's okay. But you just have to stay in communication with those leads to find out if they're going to have to drop, or they really can't buy, or get them into, that's what you do. You help people. If they're not ready, take them to Roxanne. Roxanne will get them ready. Okay? If they're trying to sell, how soon are they wanting to sell? Or are they realistic about selling? A lot of people think about selling is about how much money they can get for the house. Yes, it is. However, it's what the market is going to tell you. And the market is about the buyer. Okay? The buyer is the one who sets the market trends, not the seller. Okay? Which you know, Jillian. Yeah. Okay, so I know that it is hard to start lead generating, and you've done some other classes, and you've done your how to do the database, the open houses, prospecting, accountability. You need to do this every single day, because you start to get used to it and you become accustomed to it. So if you look at this sheet, you should be already doing some of these things already. If you're not, go back to 1 and start doing it again, okay? In my business, I have to sometimes, when I get in a slump, I have to sit back and start all over again. I turn myself into a student and review all of the things, and it reminds me again what I need to do. Because sometimes we lose track, we stray away from what we're doing. So that's what we're going to be doing. Right now, we're going to do what they call a power up video with Diana Kokoska. And I like this one because it asks questions. Ask the questions about yourself. And a lot of what we do. Sorry, there you go.
So I was reading through my journal, and it was very interesting. Today I wrote down what I learned. I've been learning from Coach Wooden, one of the greatest coaches of all time, as you know, and he had this little card. He kept this card from the time he was 12 years old. His dad had given it to him. He read it every single day. Now, it's very interesting because this was shared with me by John Maxwell, who was meeting with John Wooden at the time, and he said that John Wooden wanted to live up to his dad's expectations. Now here's what the card said, in case you're interested, right? It said, be true to yourself. That's the first thing that you should do each and every day. The second thing he said is make each day your masterpiece. Oh my goodness, what masterpiece are you going to be designing today? What are you going to paint your day full of, right? Negativity or positivity? Are you going to paint a great day for yourself? Because that's a life I design. And number three, well, help others. Are we here to serve and to help others? I mean, after all, when you serve others, you have a life of significance. If it's all about you, yes, you have success, and it's all about you. You can have success and significance when you put the other person ahead of yourself. Now, 4, drink deeply from good books. What good books are you reading each and every day? Are you reading? I have found that if I read 5 pages every day, no matter what, 5 pages a day, it's amazing how many books I can get through. It's the discipline of reading X amount. Maybe say I'll read 2 pages a day. Whatever it is, get into that discipline. You can see there's lots of days I read more than 5, and then there's other days that I just read the 5. Whatever it is, it's great. And deeply from good books. And then he said, make friendship a fine art. Yeah, you gotta be a friend to have friends, right? Friendship is important. Make certain that you find the strengths in all of your friends, and you will have friends for life. And 6, well, build a shelter against a rainy day. In essence, save money, right? You never know when you're going to have to take care of something. Have some food on hand in case there's a storm brewing. Have water there. I mean, take care of yourself for a rainy day. In essence, what I look at as well is take care of your health. So you don't have to pay a lot of money to doctors, right? When you take care of yourself and you're disciplined in what you eat and your exercise and literally thinking positive thoughts, it's amazing how healthy you can actually be. Now, Coach Wooden actually shared this. Think about it, reading it every day. What if you put those down on a card and you read them every single day and you lived your life that way? I bet you would have massive success, and more importantly, you would have massive significance, which brings success as well. And the question is, do you want to be successful and significant? I do. Do you?
I know we show you these videos, and why do we show you these videos? These videos show you that a lot of what we do has to come from inside, and a lot of it is changing our mindset, how we do things. If we believe in ourselves and ask these questions, and we always come from contribution, people will see that we are sincere and we're trustworthy, and we're no longer a salesperson. So when we do this and we look and ask these questions, that's how we become, that's how we distinguish ourselves from another person. We always come from contribution from the heart. And so yes, my clients are my friends, and they were probably friends before, but now they're my clients, they trust me, and they know that when they go into the professional part of the transaction, that I become the professional person to give them the best advice that I can to get them to where they want to be, either to sell a house or to purchase a house. How do you guys feel about making phone calls? Are any of you guys going to bowl? No? Does anybody know what Bold is? Bold is a 6 to 7 week class, and it's very intense. It's again changing your mindset, learning scripts, learning. If you practice, you don't practice on the client, you practice with each other. And once you feel it comes out naturally, these scripts that we get the telemarketers over the phone, you can hear that they're just basically reading it off the sheet. Well, we practice, so we doesn't sound like we're actually reading from an actual sheet. And then we actually put our own sound to it, and that's what we usually do. So I know it's hard to pick up the phone and call somebody, but just call one person. I challenge you right now for the next 5 minutes, just pick up the phone, and I'll walk out, Just call one person and ask them, hey, do you know anybody? If it's your friend, call a friend. It makes things easier. Hey, I'm in the class and they've asked us to call a friend and say, who do you know that's looking to buy, sell, or invest in real estate today? And then if they give you a name, say, thank you so much. I appreciate that. Write their name. If you have their address, send them a note card. Okay? And if they didn't have one, still send them a note card, because what they'll do is they'll remember that and they'll call you when there's somebody that they do know. But if you want, let's go ahead and do that for the next 5 minutes. So I'll give you 5 minutes. Just call one person, and what you're going to say is, let's just say I'm calling Rosie. Hey, Rosie, I'm in this class right now. Do you know, and they're asking me to call somebody that I know and ask you the question, who do you know that's looking to buy, sell, or invest in real estate today? You guys do that? Just one person, okay? I'm asking you to do it. My teacher's telling me to do it, so just one phone call. I'm gonna walk out, so I need everybody on the phone. Just one call. It's gonna be tough, but I know you guys can do it.
Hey, Billy, what's going on? Oh, I'm hanging in there. No, not exactly, no. I'm actually in a class at the moment, and in real estate class. And they have asked us to call a friend, so I'm calling you and see if you know of anybody who wants to buy, sell, or invest in real estate.
Shouldn't be.
Are you aware?
It's Raul, actually wrote a step back right now, and
Oh, good.
asked me to call.
How's things going there?
And just kind of see if you have any real estate or if they know anybody.
I think it'll always
When you
be.
can, give me a call, and we'll touch base. Thanks. Bye.
Yeah. 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 I think so. I said, I think so. Yeah. Oh, nice. Was it good there? Yeah. Yeah. Oh, good. Yeah.
Hey, so I'm in a class and they're requiring us maybe.
Yeah, oh, yeah.
Find out.
All right, well, I'll talk to you in a week or so.
Anybody
And
who
get back to my class.
needs help in real estate, so I was just calling you because, you know.
All right, sure. Have a great day.
So, yeah, just text me, all right? Bye. How are we doing? Did anybody get through?
I decided to text instead because I remember this one friend that I really, that his wife talked to my wife and said that they bought some land, they're gonna be building a house, and they're gonna be selling their house. So I thought, okay, but he prefers text. So I just texted him.
Okay, did you get a response?
Yes, yep.
What did he say?
He said yes, that they are gonna be doing that, and he doesn't respond in terms of, yes,
But you got a
selling.
response,
Yeah, yes, I did get a response.
so that is a very good lead.
Yeah,
So,
yeah,
so
it is, so I'm definitely gonna follow up on it.
definitely put him on your database.
Yeah, he's there already, yeah.
How about you, Jillian?
I called, got voicemail, but they texted me back.
Okay,
So.
that's still, anything?
No, not in answering my question, no.
Oh, something else.
Well, they
Okay,
told me they couldn't take my call, and I was like, okay.
all right, yeah, no, that's fine. And you may get it during the day, who knows, they may just follow up. How about you, Owen?
I called, I just got a voicemail.
Voicemail?
Kind of followed up with the text.
Okay,
Later.
all right, well, then follow up during the day and see where that leads you. And in fact, if you don't get anybody, call again, call somebody else and see how many you can call during the day. Your goal on this is to call at least 10 people and to try to get as many leads as you can. Now, I know you're not licensed just yet, but if you do get a lead, you can go ahead and use that as a referral. And once you get, and you can talk to Justin about that. If that person gets into contract, they can hold off on your commission check until you're licensed. So that's another motivation for you to spark interest and start putting people into your database. Okay? How about you? How'd you do?
I did good.
You got a lead?
No, but I called the guy and he said he doesn't know anybody right now, but when he does, he'll call me.
Perfect. Yes.
And I believe him.
Perfect. See, this is all we do. People think that there's a lot of storefronts, and clients, buyers, and sellers will not necessarily go to a storefront because they don't know who to trust. And the big thing is, who are they going to trust? They're going to trust to somebody that's going to be sincere when they're in a conversation. Social events are great places to go. If you have a grand opening for like a supermarket or a new office or a new business, that's a good place to let people know who you are. So once they see your face and you talk to them, they build a trust. And that's how you'll be able, when you call them and ask them the same question, they'll know who you are, and it'll be easier for them to release information to you. Okay? They want to help you be successful. Okay? Because you're going to help them in their business if you went to a grand opening of a business. So I was supposed to do this after the power hour, before you make the phone calls, but we're going to do it right now. It says, my business is growing abundantly, and you have to say it at least 3 times a day. Say it, but say it with the heart. So let's just say it right now. This is on page 9.3. My business is growing abundantly. My business is growing abundantly. My business is growing abundantly. Okay. So remember your scripts. Remember, if I believe you should have some scripts already from the previous classes, but if you don't, you can always go on to KWLS or ask Jessica to print them out for you. Okay, so I believe you've already done the leads, appointments, agreements, contracts. The contracts we're going to do right today, which make and receive offers. So today's plan we're going to do is we're going to walk you through the process of writing and presenting offers to when you're presenting to representing a buyer, how to receive offers when you are representing a seller. You're going to you practice scripts. Everything is scripted. After a while, you'll get used to it and you'll be able to say the same thing over and over again, but in different ways to match or mirror the seller or buyer. You also need to stage for a positive negotiation. And we'll talk about that a little bit further, how you do that. And then you're going to walk away with an action plan for the next one.
No.
Oh, like that, okay.
Cell phones are not accepted yet.
Yeah, I just,
So our affirmation for today is, I'm a great real estate agent and people respect me and want to work with me. So let's just say that today. I am a great real estate agent and people respect me and want to work with me. I am a great real estate agent and people respect me and want to work with me. So, of course they do, because we're great. This is why we come to classes, so we can learn, so we can do the best for them. So let's make it happen. What happens in the offer process? I know you two, Jillian and Mike, you've already gone through the process, but we're going to go ahead and review it for the new agents. When you get an offer, buyer makes an offer, and the seller will respond to the offer. We're on page number 96, if you're looking at your sheet there.
Yes.
I believe some are in the back.
I'm fine.
You know what? I have one here.
Should be okay.
I just remembered.
I'll be back.
Once your buyer, you've gone out, show the buyer multiple properties, and they finally find the one. Set expectations for that particular buyer. And also, a lot of buyers don't know when to tell you that they're ready to make an offer. So you're going to have to, when you're showing them property, you're going to have to tell them, if this is the house you want to make an offer, you need to tell me this is the house I want to make an offer. Because they don't know the verbiage. They don't know how they say, well, how do we buy the house? They don't say we want to make an offer. They say, how do we buy this one if we want it? So what's next? So what you're going to tell them when you're showing the house is, when you're ready and this is the house you like, ask them, is this the house? Do you want to make an offer? Use the words so that they can say them back to you. You want to make sure that, is this the house? Do you want to make an offer? Because they don't know. Sometimes you've got buyers who have no clue what the verbiage is. So make sure you repeat it several times. So when you're ready to write and prepare the offer, you're going to need to prepare the offer, write the offer, and present the offer to the listing agent. In preparing the offer, you want to make sure, and you actually want to make sure you have a pre-qualification letter before you start showing them property, and you have a buyer-broker agreement before you start showing them the property. And also, if you have the pre-approval letter, the pre-approval letter is very important because that's going to let you know what kind of loan they have. And also, it'll avoid you having to show houses that don't apply to that particular loan. If it's an FHA, VA, or USDA loan, the house has to meet certain guidelines for the loan so that the process goes. There's two processes going. You're doing the house, and the lender's doing the loan. But they all mesh together. So you're going to be working with the lender to find out what kind of loan it has. Without knowing that, it'd be harder for you to show a house. A lot of buyers want to buy a house that has income producing, like say walnuts, or land that's income producing. With FHA, you can't have that, or USDA, you cannot have that. VA, I'm not quite sure. That would be a lending question. So you want to always make sure you have a pre-qualification letter. So when you're submitting the offer, you're prepared, okay? Also, ensure that the property is still available. Call the agent. Call the agent. You've already shown the property. It's on the MLS. It's still showing active, but you don't know if other offers have come in or other offers will be coming in, because you want to know, are you going to be in a multiple offer situation, or is it singly your particular offer that's going to be in there? So always call the agent They're not very good sometimes about responding, but it's your responsibility to your buyer to contact the agent. The other thing you want to do is before you sit down and actually put a number on the contract as what they want to offer, is pull out, we do what they call a market analysis for a seller. Market analysis also tells us what properties are selling for, what houses are active, and which houses are pending. You also want to do this for a buyer. A lot of agents don't do it, but I highly recommend you do, especially if you're going to make an offer that is lower than what the seller is asking for. This way you can say, you know what, based on the comparables that have sold, my offer is coming at this. An example of a market analysis is this one. This is a true market analysis that I did. This house that I was doing a market analysis was in Maxwell, but there are no comparables in Maxwell. So I had to pull comparables from areas like Yuba City, Willows, Olivehurst, because this was 2 houses on a lot that were income producing. It wasn't a duplex, but this is a market analysis for the seller. But the exact same market analysis, when a buyer would come in and want to put an offer in and he wanted to lowball, I would also show them the same market analysis of the difference. You know what, how can you justify that price based on the comparables that are selling? Because this is what the seller will see. I always tell the buyer, when you're a buyer, go into the mindset of a seller, pretend you're the seller. And if you are a seller, go into the mindset that you are the buyer, because that's how a buyer is going to see it, okay? So if you haven't seen what a market analysis looks like, I'll pass this along. Another reason that you want to contact the agent, if you do, or get him or her on the phone, you want to start asking questions. Why is the seller selling? Or do they have a place to go? How many offers are coming in? Do you have an offer? What are they willing to negotiate? Have any inspections been done on the property? All of these you need to know so that you know how to construct the offer correctly, okay? You want to try to get as much of the negotiations out of the way beforehand. And also, if you're working with a lender, you're going to need to make sure that the type of loan will go with all of the needs of the buyer. Some of the things that come up are that the seller owes more money and he might be in a short sale situation. Short sale situation is you guys are familiar with short sales. Are you familiar with a short sale? Okay. When the seller owes more money than the house is worth. Now, it also shows up on the preliminary title report. When you're in the process of this, the lender will look at the preliminary title report. You will look at the title report, and down there, they'll let you know if there is a outstanding loan on the property. Usually, that's a red flag right there if you owe a lot more money than what the house is currently selling for. So if you don't have a preliminary title report at that moment, or sometimes you do, because what I try to do when I have a seller is to try to get a preliminary title report to get to the buyer so that they know exactly what's going on. If you see that, say, why aren't you short selling? Because it could be, they paid it off, they had some inheritance, it just hasn't been updated on the prelim. Okay, some of those questions could be answered. Or, I didn't see that. I hate to say that, let me back up. Buyers and sellers sometimes don't give you full information, full disclosure up front, okay? So, or they will not tell the buyer, if, especially if we're sell by owner and you have a buyer, they won't tell them, let some of the things have, or they have more than one offer, more than one loan on it. So if they took a line of credit out, they think that it's because it's a revolving line of credit, that they can take it with them when they sell the house. No, they can't. It has to be paid for at the time, and that could cause a short sale situation, okay? So that's why you need to ask all these questions before. I say enemy, but it's not really an enemy, but know your enemy or the other person opposing you, because you need to know what you're up against, and you need to know the needs of your buyers. If you know that your particular buyer likes this house but is not in love with the house, they most likely will not put their best foot forward. If they love this house and meets almost 75 to 90% of what they're at, not us perfect, but if it meets a lot of their requirements, then they're going to put their best foot forward, and you're going to help them do that, okay? So, and that's by asking all these questions. When you're writing an offer, you want to make sure too, is that you look at the property profile of the property. Some agents get lazy, or they have assistants that put information in the computer for them, and they will put the wrong address. They will put the wrong parcel number on the MLS. It is your job. It is your job. It'll come up. You just want, what you're trying to do is avoid anything or extra work in the middle of a transaction that's going to hold up the loan, because of wrong address. If you put way instead of street, it holds up the loan. So by doing it right the first time, it avoids all of that. So double check the addresses. Double check the name. The name that you're talking to, especially with Hispanic families, you have sometimes 2 to 3 last names, or you want to make sure that their middle name is really their middle name and their last name is really their last name. And also that the lender's letter of approval matches exactly the name that you're going to put on the contract, okay? In certain instances, you have multiple family members that will also be co-borrowers, and they cannot fit on the lost my train of thought here. Sorry. The name. Well, yeah. There's a additional signature addendum. If you have multiple names, there's an addendum that you could add to the contract to add multiple buyers in or multiple sellers on those addendums. So once you use your CAR forms, which are your legal forms, you will see that. I'm sure you probably already have access to your forms, right?
Not yet.
Not yet? Okay. When you go in there, review the list, and at one time or another, you'll probably need to use one of those forms. So you'll see that. It's called addendum to seller or buyer signatures, okay? For additional buyers' signatures. The other thing you want to know is how much activity. Some agents won't tell, or some listing agents will not let you know how much activity has been there. They don't want to tell you because they want the most for their sellers. But if you know that there's been no activity, that's going to help your situation now, because then that way it'll give you an edge. So any information, some agents will tell you everything that you don't even want to know. You use it. You use that information and you thank them for everything that they gave you, okay? So always be thankful. If they don't give you any information, thank them anyway, because you want to establish a rapport. Not only is your buyer your client, that listing agent is also your client, because you never know when it's going to come around and you're going to be doing business with them again. But if they remember that you were professional, they will be in turn next time be professional to you, especially when you're starting new and they don't know who you are and they don't trust you. You want to say thank you very much for all the information you gave me, even if they give you none, okay?
Can I mention the second half?
If there is a seller questionnaire, what we try to do when we get a listing is to have the seller questionnaire already filled out. The seller questionnaire answers a lot of questions about the property. Same thing with the TDS, or the transfer disclosure statement. We'll answer a lot of questions about the property so that you know in advance. You want to know if there's been an insurance claim on the property. Why? Because that could affect you on the insurance that you're going to be buying for your buyers. Or when you shop around, you'll know that they'll be there. Also, property ID has what they call a clue report. Property ID produces a natural hazard disclosure, which is mandatory on all of your files. But they also have a clue report for $19. That clue report lets you know if the owner of the property has called the insurance company multiple times, or have there been insurance claims on the property. Maybe they didn't disclose it, but the clue report will disclose it for you, okay? So keep that in mind. It's called clue. I don't know exactly what clue stands for, but it's clue. Now, when you make an offer on a short sale, short sales are as is. So let your buyer know you're not going to get anything done on this house. You cannot ask for repairs. I have a situation in Maxwell right now. It's a short sale. It's a Fannie Mae. It's U.S. Bank, but Fannie Mae has the loan. Fannie Mae will allow up to 3% buyer closing cost credit. So the buyer can ask for 3% credit, but no repairs. The house needs repairs on the roof, and there were some dry rot issues on the door. Here comes the sticky situation. You need to let your buyer up front know that this is a short sale situation, and in short sale situations, the seller is not allowed to make any repairs on the property. And why? Because if you make any repairs, if you pay $500, $1,000 in repair, the bank says, where did you get that money to the seller to do those repairs? If you got $1,000, we want them in our pocket, because we're losing already money on you. So it's an as-is. Even if the appraisal calls it, even if the buyer didn't ask for any repairs, but the appraisal says, I'm conditioning this particular house, I'll approve the appraisal, but I need these repairs to be done. Doesn't matter. The buyer will then, at this point, have to make the decision to either pay for the repairs on a property they have not purchased, and that's where it gets very sticky situation. You want to make sure that their loan has been approved, that the buyer still wants the house, and that the buyer knows what the consequences are about making those repairs, okay? Because if you pay that money out and you don't get the loan, you can't come back and take things out that you already fixed on that house that it doesn't even belong to you, okay? So you want to really be careful on that. REOs. REO stands for bank-owned or real estate-owned properties. Bank-owned properties are a little bit different, depending on who the bank is. You need to know who your sellers are at all times. If it is a Fannie Mae, if it is a Freddie Mac, if it is a Wells Fargo, if it is a Hubzu, if it is, you need to know what they do, what they can or can't do. So before you write an offer, contact the agent and ask them, what are the typical timelines? What will the seller pay for? Will they give us any credit? Are there any additional expenses that we have to do? Do they want us to use their title company? Can we use our title company? These are some of the questions that you're going to need to ask the agent so that they can give you all the information. So when you're filling out the form on the contract, you're filling it out correctly, okay? California law says that the buyer can choose the title company, but when you choose the title company on a bank-owned property, the buyer has to pay the title insurance 100%. Or it depends on the bank. Like for instance, I know that Fannie Mae uses Old Republic in Yuba City. I'm okay with that, right? Because it's a local office and I know who they are and it's easier to work with. But if it's a Freddie Mac, they usually like to use Stewart Title down in Southern California. I kind of don't like that. So what I do is I go ahead and I tell the buyer, if you choose to go to use a title company locally, you're going to have to pay for the title insurance. Now, if you choose the seller's title insurance company, the seller will pay for that. Okay, the seller usually pays 100% of that. So when you're filling out the form, who pays what, you already know that if you go with the sellers, you're going to mark seller to pay for the title insurance, and it's going to be seller's choice of title company. Okay? Do you have a question?
Well, how, I did, and it kind of went away. Why wouldn't you just roll with the sellers regardless of where it's at? Why don't you like Southern California title?
I don't like Southern California
As
title companies because their fees are twice as much as ours.
I see.
Fees are higher than us. So if our fees are $1,000 for title insurance, Southern California most likely will be closer to $2,000. And if they say, well, okay, we'll do 50 title and escrow, well, it's $1,000 in Southern California and $1,000 here in Northern California. And why wouldn't I choose the one here since I'm only paying $1,000 and it's local and my person can go and sign at the local title company? Otherwise, if we go with the Southern California one, they're going to have to send a mobile notary. Documents take longer because they have to be overnighted over to Southern California. So lengths of times are going to be extended and you might have to ask for an extension. See, I can't call April Porter at First American Title and say, hey, where's the prelim? Or, hey, can you get me a net sheet? Or, hey, can you do this? I can't do that in Southern California. They don't know me. I want somebody who knows me, who's going to take care of my clients, and if there's an issue or a problem, they're going to tell me the truth. Not that they wouldn't tell me the truth down there, it just,
Right.
we're not a priority. Up here, we are a priority. So there's a lot of reasons why. So you got to know when to pick your battles when you're doing the bank-owned properties. The REOs are also sold as is, okay, bank-owned property. But here's the other thing that you probably don't know. If it's an appraisal, a condition of the appraisal on a bank-owned property, you can negotiate with the bank for repairs. Why? Because the bank really doesn't pay for the repairs. It's the insurance company that does. So if it exceeds a certain amount of money, their insurance company, I have seen insurance companies on bank-owned properties pay for a new roof, new carpet, new windows, new doors. It doesn't affect the bank. So they'll agree to it if it's on the appraisal as a condition. If it's not on the appraisal as a condition, we can't go back to the bank and ask them because it's an as is. So when you're talking to your buyer, you need to let them know if the appraisal does not call it, it's not going to be a reason for the bank to do it. I have a buyer right now, a perfect example. I said, you're taking a risk. He said, that's okay, I want the risk. He goes, because he wants his house. But all around the eaves, it's rotted out. The bank would not pay for a pest inspection because they don't want to know. They didn't want to pay for a roof inspection because they don't want to know. My buyer's paying for a roof inspection and a pest inspection because he wants to know. And then I got a call from the appraiser. Says, and is everything good on this house? And I said, no. There's dry rot on the eaves and there's dry rot on the siding. I need you to call it out. Because if it's...
And he hadn't?
He hadn't gone to the property yet.
Okay.
I want you to call it out. Are you? Because most agents go, don't call that out, don't call that out. I go, I want you to call it out. Because I want to make it a condition of the appraisal that these things need to be repaired. Because I know that the insurance company with Wells Fargo will pay for the repairs. Okay? Because in this bank-owned property is Wells Fargo. So if you're working with a bank-owned property and you're gonna make an offer on a property and you're not familiar what the seller will or will not do, contact an agent that's experienced already making offers on bank-owned properties. Just ask one of us. We can tell you, don't ask for this, don't ask for that, prepare for this, and this is what you're gonna get. But generally, everything is as is, and the bank wants you to use their title company because they've already negotiated a reduction in rate, but they're not gonna give you a reduction on your part of it. So, even though they say 50-50 escrow, they're getting a discount from the title company. Down in Southern California, usually. Make sure that the buyer has their money, their earnest money deposit. Earnest money deposit is their good faith money. Good faith money is just that, good faith. It is not a deposit until you have removed your contingencies. Once you have removed your contingencies, it becomes part of your down payment. So if the buyer does not go through with the transaction and has removed their contingencies, they will lose that deposit, okay, or good faith money. So make sure, and also before you do this, also talk to the buyer's lender. You want to ask them, they're going to be writing me a check for X dollars. We're writing it a deposit for this amount. In Colusa County and in Yuba Sutter counties, they usually have minimum of 1% of the purchase price. If you put anything less than that, the seller can look at it that you're not really that interested in the home, okay? So you want to do at least 1%. And you want to talk to the lender because you want to know if the money is going to be coming out of their checking account, their savings account, their Wells Fargo account, their U.S. bank account, because that also could draw up problems for the lender later if they take it out of the account. The other thing that they will also do is they'll take cash to the title company. No cash. You got to remind them that it has to be either a cashier's check or a personal check when it's a deposit made out to the title company. My personal experience is I don't keep the check. I just take a photocopy of the check, give it back to them. It's their responsible to get the check over to the title company. I'm in Colusa, so I give them an envelope with the address and with the stamp, and they can just pop it in the mail. Because they are the ones responsible for it. I'm not touching or keeping. If I do, I have to keep a record of it, or the office here has to keep a record of it. I want to do that. If I lose the check, who's responsible? Me. Special, yeah. Justin, yeah. Yeah. Okay, so you've already talked to the lender, you've talked to the listing agent, and you're ready to write the offer. And you're going to explain to the buyer all of these things, that why you're doing it. So I'm sure that there's a contract class also. If you have multiple offers on a property, or you're expecting multiple offers, one idea would be to go ahead and write a letter to the seller explaining why you want to purchase the home. I had a situation where it's a for sale by owner, and he happened to be one of my neighbors. He had done an appraisal. He had already an idea what the house should be selling for. Did not want to work with an agent to list the home. I had a buyer that would fit perfectly in the neighborhood, was qualified up to what the house was appraised for. Of course, when we went to look at it, there's a couple of things that needed to be repaired, and it was a conventional loan. And so we made an offer. But at the same time, right when we made an offer, another offer came in on the other side. Because there was no listing agent to call if there was any offers coming in, I was dealing directly with the seller. My offer was $5,000 below what the appraised value was for. The other offer came in exactly of what the appraisal came in at. But we wrote a letter to the sellers, and I personally presented it because there was no listing agent, which was nice. And I said, these people would fit perfect in the neighborhood. You're a quilter, she's a quilter. These people know these people. People know those people. My buyers really want the house. They're willing to come up to the appraised value. They met the buyers, and then they go, that offer is like $5,000 more. We're going to walk away with $5,000 more in our pocket than your offer. I get a call, and they said, my buyers finally said, we'll just give them the full what they're asking. I got a call from the seller. Tell your buyers I'm going to take their offer $5,000 less because that was their initial offer and it wasn't a bad offer. Everything else was a clean offer. We're going to take their offer. And I go, why are you taking their offer? Because she's a quilter and she knows so-and-so and she knows so-and-so. And we want our neighbors to be happy. So sellers don't need to take the full price offer. They don't need to take the best offer. It could be based on whatever it is. So if you make a connection with the sellers, sometimes they want to give back. And in this particular, the sellers gave back and my buyers bought the house for $5,000 less than the other house. So that was kind of a nice feeling. So everybody won. And you want to make this work for everybody. Here they talk about humanizing the offer, and that's exactly what we did. It's just bringing it down to earth. It's a conversation. We are realtors. We do sell homes, and that's not what we do. We help people sell and or buy homes. But actually what we do is we put people together. We put a person who wants to sell with a person who wants to buy, and we mutually come into an agreement. So knowing what the seller's needs are, knowing what the buyer's needs are, and mutually coming to an agreement usually makes it a win-win for everybody, okay? Some of the things that to help your offer also when you're writing a letter is to let them know how soon that the buyer can close, how strong of a buyer you have, how strong of a lender you have, how strong of inspections or having clean inspections. If you've got buyers that have extra funds available, tell them, don't negotiate a pest inspection for $150. Don't ask for any repairs that are cosmetic. Don't ask for any repairs that, that room is blue and you really wanted it beige. You want them to paint that room. But you really want the house. You like everything except for that blue room. Don't negotiate paint. Don't negotiate refrigerators. Fixtures, light fixtures. Because you don't like that, you want them to remove it. Some of those things are not worth it, especially if they haven't done the appraisal. Because what if the appraisal comes in a lot lower? Wouldn't you want to negotiate a lower price than you are on a fixture or a pest inspection price? So you want to make sure that when you're preparing the offer that you don't ask, people say, well, let's just ask for the moon and see if we can get halfway. No. Ask for things that are health and safety. A broken window, smoke detectors, water heater bracing. No water heater in the house. That's a major thing. You gotta need to have a water heater. So those are some of the things. Negotiate those things that are big ticket items. Negotiate ticket items, but in health and safety, but nothing that has to do with cosmetic. On page number 910, there is a Shankakoska Mega Agent Buyer Specialist. There's a little read there for you to read. If you want to read that and see if you can come up with any aha moments.
But, you know, my first impression is that sellers don't want to hear from the buyer like that, but maybe you're right. Interesting.
Some sellers don't want to know. They don't want to use their emotion to make a decision. But there are some sellers that do want to know. They want to know who's moving into their house. They want to know who's going to love their house the same way, especially if they've been, and that's another thing. When you do the profile, you can see how long they've lived in the house or how long they've lived in it. If it's been a tenant occupied property, they probably don't have the same emotional feeling attachment to the house than they do if they actually lived in it. If it's a house that's completely well taken care of and they've been there for 20-something years, yes, they want to know who's going to love the house exactly the same way. And why are they moving? They're moving because of a job, or maybe they have to take care of a parent and they have to move. So they don't really want to leave the house, but they have to. They have no choice. They have to sell the house. That's why you have to find out all of these things so you know exactly what to do. And it doesn't hurt to do the letter. It doesn't hurt, especially if the buyer really wants the house. I've had to interpret letters for my clients who really said, well, can you tell them this? And I said, no, you write it in your own words, in your own writing, and I will translate it and put it in there and show it to the seller so the seller knows who's actually coming in before my Spanish-speaking clients. They want to tell the seller certain things, and that's what your job is, to try to get as much. Sometimes it's not, like I said, it's not about the price. Sometimes it's just about the emotion, who's going to take care of the house. On page number 911 is actually a checklist for writing an offer. So price and terms, determining the price and the terms, and that's going to be because of the market analysis. The seller's disclosures that they're talking about, they're actually talking about, you can put a mark on there, is the TDS and the SPQ. Those are what we use. The TDS stands for Transfer Disclosure Statement. SPQ is a Seller Property Questionnaire. Some agents have it, some agents don't. If you have it, use it. You also know you need to know what it's going to convey. For instance, down here, basically it's just the stove that usually conveys, but what about the refrigerator? Does it convey? Does it not convey? Washer, dryer. If you go sell property up in Lake Almanor, they get furniture. There's an addendum that you're buying a property and it comes with all of this furniture. That's typically how they sell property up there. So know your area, okay? Earnest money deposit, that's your good faith deposit. You need to know where the money's coming from. Check with the lender that the buyer is giving you the money for the right account. Make sure that how much time for the seller to respond. Typically you have 3 days for the seller to respond, but it could be that the seller is in Hawaii and won't be back for a week. So you need to be able to tell the buyer's agent, you know, don't expect a call back from us or a response until about a week. Make sure that the financing terms are exactly what the lender will also agree to. You don't want to put a 30-day escrow when the lender says they need 60 days. Why? Because you have to go back to renegotiation. So make sure you check with the lender. How much time do you need to do this loan? 30 days, 45 days, or 60 days? Financing terms, make sure that the terms are exactly what's on there. There's a contract. On the contract it says one section about the loan, what kind of loan you're going to be using, conventional, FHA, VA, or other. And it also has a little percentage here. That little percentage is so that you can put the percentage of the loan. Agents leave that blank. Don't leave it blank, because it is basically saying this is another contingency. If my interest rate right now is 4.5%, and by the time I get this offer accepted, the rate has gone up to 7%, maybe the rate my buyer can't buy this house anymore. So don't leave this first part blank. Put something in there. Put the rate that the lender's telling you what the loan is for. okay? So make sure that that is filled out. So when they talk about financing terms, that's part of it. Buyer pre-approval letter. Make sure that your offer matches the loan approval and all the names are exactly also on their ID, because maybe the loan approval is not the same as the name on the ID, and that could be a problem later. All you want to do is catch all the problems in advance before you start the process. Closing date. Again, make sure with the lender that the closing date that you put on the contract is going to be a true amount. Of course, the seller's going to look at the closing date. So you got a little situation here where you've got a lender that says, I need 60 days, because the lender is kind of slow and does things on their, when you know it's an FHA loan, which can be done in 30 to 45 days. So you say, you know what, I'm going to write this offer in 45 days. I don't want you to stretch it out to 60 days. I want you to try to do it in 30 days. So this is a conversation you don't do with the seller, but you do it with the lender, okay? So you want to make sure that they're on the same page as you are, because you want the offer to be accepted. What seller would want the house to be off the market for 2 months while the lender's taking their time to do the loan? No seller's going to want to do that. The shortest closing date is a lot better for the seller. Now, if the seller needs time, if they need 60 days, that was one of the conversations you have with the agent, then do 60 days. But explain to her, we can close in 45 days, but we're extending it to 60 days because we want your seller to have this full 60 days, okay? That you're doing them a favor, not yourself a favor. Home warranty. If you can always get the seller to pay for a home warranty, that would be great. If not, negotiate to 50-50, where you pay half, the seller pays half. Or something. Always want to have a home warranty. Repairs. Don't ask for repairs right away, not unless it's something very obvious, like a broken window. Repairs, usually you want to do them after the home inspection and after the appraisal has been done. A request for repairs is just that. It's a request for repairs. This is what it is, what it looks like. And it tells you the buyer requests that the seller, prior to the final verification of property repair, or take other specified actions for each item listed below, or section 1 of the pest report, or section 2 of the pest report, or buyer requests that the seller reduce the purchase price to, based on the repairs. And it's just that, a request. It's not a mandatory thing that they can say. So the buyer can actually use this as a way to get out of the contract if the seller's not willing to do the repairs. So up in there, if you look on this document, there is no place for the seller to sign. Okay? So there is a response to the buyer's request for repairs for the seller on another document. But on this document, the seller doesn't even have to sign it. So I'm going to pass this around so you guys can get to looking at that. I don't know that the other classes have told you what contingencies are. Are you familiar with the word contingencies or conditions? Okay. Remind the buyer what your contingencies are, what they're putting down as contingencies. Buyers sometimes think that these are normal. They're not normal. A regular offer would be a 14-day close, no inspections, as is, no repairs, that's it. But now you have a loan, that's a contingency. Now you have an appraisal, that's a contingency. So when you put these contingencies, it's not very typical of an offer, but that's how they're making their offer. So remind them that they're putting contingencies on the loan. So not just the price, but other things. So when if a buyer wants to ask for repairs, just remind them, we still have to do the inspections and we still need the appraisal. So before doing that, let's go ahead and get those things out of the way. So when we negotiate, we only negotiate once. You want to negotiate for repairs multiple times. You want to only do that once. Now, if the buyer wants to come in with a lower price, what you probably do, and also the things that some buyers would like to do is, they say, I want them to pay half of my closing costs. Well, your closing costs are cheaper than the seller's closing costs. You realize that. Have you ever talked to the seller? So when the seller pays, they're paying commission, they're paying all of those things, and probably they're paying more than what, they're paying about 8%, and you're only paying about 3%. So if you want them to pay half of their closing costs, so do you mean you're gonna pay half of theirs? So when you say 50-50, so when you negotiate escrow and title fees, remind them of that. The seller has to pay a lot more. Here's some examples of net sheets that I have done in the past. This is for 100,000 on the same property versus 145 with the counter that we gave, okay? If you don't have the app, I have First American app because I use First American quite a bit. Call Janelle Willis. She can get you access to the app on your phone. And it has property profiles, has property history, and you can do that all on your phone. And then I also use First American online to do my net sheets. And they're, I would say, very, very close to accurate. When you send your offer, once it's completed and done, and you've emailed it or faxed it, pick up the phone and call the agent. Let her know it's on. Not every agent looks on their email or checks their fax on a daily basis. Be surprised. So make sure you follow up with the agent and review the contract with them, okay? And then explain to them if the buyer doesn't want to write a letter, just explain to these are very high qualified buyers. They can close in X number of days. They've got their money ready to go. And then just promote your buyer to the listing agent. Okay, so now we're going to talk about when you represent a seller. When you receive an offer, you want to now get information about the buyer. One of the things that you want to also do, well, after you get the offer information about the buyer, you want to present the offer to your client, and then you want to respond to the offer. Offers, when you receive from a seller, you want to make sure that there's a conversation going between you and the buyer's agent. You don't ever want to stop the conversation. When I say stop the conversation, that means your offer gets rejected and there's no conversation left. You don't ever want to stop the conversation. You want to always try to eventually meet in the middle. So when you do get an offer, thank the agent. Again, because you want to have that great rapport with that agent. You never know when that agent may be on the opposite side and you are, representing a buyer on one of their listings. So you always want to have that rapport with them. You want to ask questions. These are all a checklist down on page 915. Is how long has the buyer been looking? Why did they select this particular property? What other properties have they seen? And how did they come up with an offer, the price on an offer price? Have they made any offers on other properties? So what happened in those negotiations? Have they been pre-approved by a lender? Do they have anything to sell? And if they're from out of town, why are they moving into this area? The more questions you ask, the more things that you know what to, counter back at. So you want to use that. And so when you go down the checklist on page number 916, you also want to make sure that the agent put the right address. They didn't put the right address, that's one thing that you want to counter. Okay? I know it's silly, but you might as well clean it up, right? You want to make sure that the price is right. Because what if they forgot to put an extra zero? happens. Earnest money. If the earnest money is too low, what does that tell you? Now, if sometimes there's agents, now keep in mind, you're working for somebody. You're working either for a buyer or you're working for a seller. It's not your response. You don't want to talk for the seller and you don't want to talk for the buyer. So before you respond to an agent, always talk to your seller or your buyer before giving a response. But
Or if you do give a response because you have to, couch it with some, this is the way it looks, don't be,
clarify.
don't.
You're there to clarify the offer. You're there to clarify the offer, but you're not there to give any opinion on the offer before you talk to the seller, before you present the offer. Don't give your opinion. Oh my gosh, that's so low. Like or like, why are you asking for all of these things? No comment. No comment. Don't say anything because you don't know that you'd be surprised how many sellers surprise you. Well, what if we do this? And they may have more ideas than you do. So don't disclose anything that the seller hasn't yet disclosed to you, okay? To allow to the buyer to know. You always want to respond, make sure when you take a listing, you always want to tell the seller, when we get an offer, we want to respond within 24 hours because that's when we can get them the momentum going, and there's that anxiousness for the buyer and going back and forth. If you wait for more time, the buyer thinks about it a lot more, and there's more things that they can say, well, I don't want to do it this way. And that just happened to me recently. I did a market analysis for a client, for a seller, and I told them the house would sell somewhere about 270, 275. There's 5 siblings selling their parents' home. One wanted to list it for 370, 350. One wanted to list it for 290. And the other 3 wanted to list it for the best price that I thought it would sell at. The matriarch of the family wanted the 350. I priced it out at between 270, 275. We were off that much. We compromised and we came in at 280. An offer came in at 280 with 3% back for closing costs. It would net the seller 271. Because there's 5 of them, it took me a week to get a response. By this time, the buyer had changed his mind and came back with a 270 offer with 3% back for closing costs, which would net the buyer about 261. And I said, no, that wouldn't work. I told the agent, the only way it would work is if you come back up to 270, don't ask for any closing costs. That we ended up at that point. But because they waited a week, but at the second time I told them, you can't keep waiting another week to get everybody's response and opinions. You already know what the market analysis said between 270 and 275. And if you would have acted on them the first one, you would have got 271.5 versus 270 now that you're getting. Eventually we're in contract, they're happy, but the buyers did not ask for any repairs, did not ask for any inspections, didn't ask for anything. No home warranty, it was a clean offer. So those things got countered. So always try to do it within 24 hours if you can, okay? The contract says 3 days, but try to do it within 24 hours. Check for the loan approval. When you are representing the seller, call the lender. A lot of agents don't call the lender. Say, tell me about this buyer. They just put an offer on my house, and it's this, this, and this. What can you tell me about them? You'll find out so much more from the lender than you will from the agent. Oh yeah. So the more information you gather for the seller, the better. Because why are you going to counter the buyer for no closing costs when you know they need the closing costs? Okay. If they need it, they can't buy it without the closing cost credit, then don't counter that. Have them increase the purchase price or find another way to find the solution. Sometimes lenders have lender credits. Check with the lender, see if they have lender credits. That's what I found out, and that's why when we said, you know what, if we're not going to give you the credit, we'll accept your 270, but we won't give you a buyer credit, but I know your lender can give you that once you check with your lender to give you the credit. And that's how it's going to go. Also, If you ask for repairs right away, that's pretty much a given right now that the buyer's probably gonna ask for more things later. Make sure that there's what the contingencies are, if there's any repairs, any contingencies. If there's homeowners association, make sure that those get disclosed, same thing with mold disclosures. Also possession of dates. We've had situations right now, especially now in this market, where the seller is also purchasing another home and they have to close concurrently and they can't move into the other place because it hasn't closed yet. So one of the things that you can negotiate also is not always the price. It's all when you're representing a buyer, you can say, I will allow the seller to stay in the home for 7 days for free. Even though I will own it for 7 days, I will let you stay there for free for 7 days so the seller can close that property and move out of the property. And to that is sometimes more valuable to a seller than it is to the buyer. You know, all you're doing is just waiting 7 days to move into your next house. So keep that in mind.
And that's not a problem with homeowners insurance or anything like that?
You still have to have a homeowner's insurance.
Yeah, but I mean, you know, with the person who's buying the house to allow the person who's selling it to stay there for that period of time, that's not a home part of the problem.
It shouldn't be a problem. It shouldn't be a problem. I mean, once you make it like a tenancy, like 2 months maybe, but if you're doing it for a resale, I haven't seen it yet to be a problem. If there is a question, I would check with homeowners insurance. But most homeowners don't have a problem with that because you're not collecting rent.
Right.
Not unless you want to collect rent. If they go beyond that, then there's a per diem. You can negotiate that too. So besides looking at the net sheet, which the sellers, that's the first thing they want to see is how much they're going to get. Also remind them what the contingencies are. If you have less contingencies and a less offer and they're only $1,000 difference, which one's really the best offer? You know, look at all of those things. Like I said, we want to keep, oh, you okay?
Yeah.
We want to keep the negotiations going until there's a mutual agreement, until somebody stops and says, okay, I can't do it anymore. Or the buyer could say, I don't want to do it anymore. Or the seller says, no, I will stop. I have a seller right now wanting to do a short sale. They're millionaires. They can buy this house and pay the difference off, but they're choosing not to. So we're short selling the house. But because they have so much money in the bank is not giving them an approval right away. So in this case, they are short money, but the sellers are going to come in with, I think, $15,000 to make the deal close. Okay, which is fine. They can do that. They have the money. But they told me that if the appraisal comes in any less, we don't have a deal. So this is something that those sellers will then negotiate into their offer when that offer comes in. But they cannot go below the 245 is what we've got it listed at. So that's the bottom line, 245, because without that, they would have to come in with more money and they don't want to. They're choosing not to. So when you do get an offer, there's a couple of things that could happen. The seller could not respond or reject the offer. They can counter the offer, or they can accept the offer. If you do the market analysis before and the other agent does the market analysis before and after, you should probably get an agreed price pretty much on the first offer, okay? But that's why we want the communication to continue. Now, we have what they call in our area agents that fish. What they'll do is they'll come in and they'll make an offer extremely low, expecting the seller to come in with a counter offer. So that counter offer, they know what their bottom line is, and then they withdraw. Now the agent knows what the seller is willing to take for that property. This is why we don't want to counter any extremely low offers. That's why we want to reject them or not answer it at all. Okay? Because that person was just fishing to see how low the seller could go. Now you'll see this periodically because there's an agent that will do that over and over again, and you'll see many withdrawals. In fact, I had one, and I said to him, I just, every single offer you've sent me, you withdrawn. So what's up with that? He goes, oh, but, he gave me all this excuse, but that's why after that, there was no more fishing on any of my properties. He stopped doing that. But keep in mind that there's agents that do that. They're not necessarily ethical on what you're supposed to be doing. And it's not good for the buyer either. The buyer needs to know that you're going back and forth. And you have to tell the buyer, in the seller, when you receive an offer, we want to negotiate. We want to negotiate terms. If your list price is your bottom line, then we have to be honest with the selling agent and say, my seller, this is your bottom line. There's absolutely no way, because he's not going to get any money out of this deal, and he just wants it clear, and this is where we're at. If it does not appraise, I need the buyer to come in with the cash difference if they want the property. Just be blunt. And because everybody, this is a lot of work. Writing an offer is a lot of work, and then you get to nowhere. Now, on some occasions, first-time buyers may have to go through the process, and you may have to spend some money on paper and some time on writing the offer, but they sometimes need to see some kind of a rejection or some kind of counter to understand the process. Okay?
And to give your words some value. And
Exactly.
what you're telling them is true.
That's correct. So what we want to do is set expectations with the seller. So you want to let the seller know. Don't give any opinion until you're ready to give them your opinion on, or don't come off very negative. You know what? The great thing is we got an offer on the property. The bad news is that it's not exactly what you were asking for, but these are the good points and these are the bad points on the contract. Good point is cash. Good point is a 14-day close. Good point, they're not asking for any repairs or anything. And good thing, it looks like it's coming in where I told you it was going to come in at. So some of those things you have to just kind of remind the seller. And it's a good point. It's the fact that people are going through the house. When people are not even we haven't had any showings in the last 2 weeks, and we have one showing and this buyer comes in, and you have to explain all of those things. Set facts, give them facts about the property. If you might need to do an updated market analysis because maybe 2 houses down, a house sold that just made the values drop, you need to probably explain that. You need to know, compare it to what you gave them originally, compare it to what the current is so that you can show the difference. You always want to recommend a seller counter, but like I said, you got to be careful because of those fishing agents that want to know what the counter is, what the seller's final amount is going to be. And just because your buyer on this, he knew the buyer, the seller knew the buyer, and is willing to counter him at a lower price than what he's got it listed for, and then the buyer backs out, it doesn't mean that he's going to counter another buyer exactly the same way. He can counter him completely different. Or if you have multiple offers, just because you have multiple offers doesn't mean you're going to counter them exactly the same counter to every single one. Maybe you like this offer, but you don't like all the conditions he's put on the offer, all the contingencies. So on this one, you're going to counter all contingencies. This offer doesn't have any contingencies, it's just the offer is lower. You're going to counter on the price. This offer over here is, kind of halfway, so you're going to counter both items. You can counter every single which way. You do have to send them a multiple offer notification to all of them. Banks like to, bank-owned properties, they like to send you what they call a blanket counter. Give me your highest and best. What they mean highest and best, it means highest price, highest conditions. And tell me what your bottom line is. Okay. So your bottom line might not be the same as somebody else. So just keep that in mind. So if you're working with sellers with bank-owned properties, usually that's how they're going to counter highest and best if you have multiple offers. And know your seller as well, because counters on bank-owned properties with Fannie Mae is usually only $5,000. So if the price was $200,000 and your offer was $150,000, the bank's going to counter you at $195,000. Prepare. In Fannie Mae, you need to know who your seller is. If you want to write this down, this is a good one here. Fannie Mae is required to counter the buyer 3 times. 3 times. You can give them a full price offer and they'll get a counter.
Wow. That is specific, I mean, it actually asks for something
Yeah, if
different?
it's not full price, they will counter you 3 times. Tell your buyer that. All you're giving your buyer is you're giving him information he's going to use. So when you're working with Fannie Mae, say, be prepared, they're going to counter you back 3 times.
And they always go down 5,000 each time, or?
Sometimes. But generally what they'll do is, it's 5%. I just put a circle around it. 5% of whatever the amount is usually where they will counter. They won't, if your offer is less than the 5%, they will continue to counter until you get within that circle, until there's another offer on the table. Okay? So that, keep in mind that if you're the only one right now on the offer and nobody's and you're countering, that doesn't mean that another offer can come in and just push you out of the way, because until you get an accepted offer, you don't have anything. Even though you're in negotiations with the bank or with the seller, you don't have anything in writing that says that you are the accepting offer. So once you have an accepted counter, getting a counter doesn't mean that you can't send a counter back. So if everything is not to your liking, it's almost there but not quite, the buyer can still send a counter offer to the seller. And when you're presenting the counter offer, talk to the agent. Call the agent. You know what, my seller, I convinced him to counter you. He didn't like that low offer, but he's countering you and he's giving you his best, and you always promote everything very positive. We want to make this work for both sides. So we gave this into the timeline, but we're asking you for this X dollars amount based on the comparables. I don't think it's going to have a problem with the appraisal. So talk up the counter as much as you can, because if you sell the counter to the agent's going to use your words to sell it to their buyer. Okay? You got to give them words to use for them when you're representing the seller. And you do the same thing when you're representing the buyer. You give words to the agent so that they can sell it to their seller. Do any of you have any questions for me so far on any of what you've seen or heard? Or
What is acceptable? Can you ask for an appraiser? I mean, if you're representing the seller, the lender, we're not privy to that unless we ask, and they can say no, right? Or,
say that again?
okay, you order a contract, the lender orders an appraisal.
Yes.
Did I not say that? I didn't say that right. The buyer is paying for it, or the bank is paying for it. The seller, how do you get that information? How do you know that what you're being told is correct?
You don't. If you are representing a buyer, the buyer is paying for the appraisal through their bank. that appraisal belongs to the buyer, doesn't belong to the seller. If the house appraises at exactly what you're in contract for or above, you will never show the appraisal to the seller. I don't. I just tell the agent it came in at value. Bottom line. But if it came over the amount, I go, wow, you already have equity in your house, you're representing the buyer. Now, if the house does not appraise at the contract price, oh yeah, I'm going to show that to the seller. Listen, this house did not come in at value. I want you to drop the price. Here's a modification of terms, or this is an addendum to do a price reduction based on the appraisal. Now, recently I had an experienced agent representing a buyer, and I was representing a seller. I get an email, no phone call, an email with the appraisal and an addendum to do a price reduction. Appraisal came in at $328. We're in contract at $335. I want you to drop the price. And I said, okay. Oh no, he sent me the addendum, no appraisal. I said, okay, well, let me see the appraisal. Reluctantly, he sent me the appraisal. Sure enough, 328 is on there, right? Second page, third page, wherever it says the value. It's my job as the seller's agent to review that appraisal. I looked at the appraisal and I pulled out my comparables when I suggested a price to the sellers, and I noticed many discrepancies. Not one, not two, like 3 or 4 discrepancies on an appraisal. Addresses were incorrect. The pictures, because I know my market, the pictures did not match the address. The square footage was wrong. All of these things were done, and I said, so I decided I'm not going to deal with the agent. Obviously, the agent is trying to pull a fast one on me or something. So I called the appraiser and I said, hey, Valerie, just looking at your appraisal, I noticed this, this, and this, and this. She goes, I know, I screwed up, huh? Because I know her. And she goes, I go, yeah, can you correct this and make the adjustments? She goes, okay. So she sends me a text message, corrections have been made. I've already sent it back to the bank. The agent who sent me the information had not given me the information that she had given it back to the bank. He was still insisting that the price go lower. After she made the adjustments, the actually house appraised $5,000 above what we were in contract for. $5,000 above. Before any of this was even disclosed to the seller, I had already done all of this work before I contacted the seller. Seller, I'm showing you an addendum that I'm voiding out because they said that the appraisal came in at X. But these corrections I found, these errors were incorrect, so I had them readjusted, and now we're fine. The appraisal came in, and it's an as-is appraisal. Great. Well, thank you for looking into that, and thank you for taking care of that. So why stress my seller out when I already knew that there's something wrong? Who comes out ahead? I do, right? And I didn't have to deal with the buyer's agent. And once it was completed and done, I called the buyer's agent. You know what? They once you have the lender take a look at the appraisal because it was readjusted. We're fine, and we're going to go ahead and void your addendum. Didn't like that, and this was an experienced agent. And then he goes, oh yes, I did see those mistakes in there. Well, why didn't you do something about it? You know? You want to be trustworthy. You have to, if you see a mistake, even if it's on your side, you want to try to correct it because you don't want problems in the end. You don't want this deal to fall apart because of incorrect information. And for $5,000, I think it was $5,000? No, $7,000. So anyway, stay positive. That's all I can say. And always give them facts. Give facts because facts are what is truly real. If you not sure about how to do a market analysis for a buyer, Ask one of us, and I guess we can show you. There's also, once you're on the MLS, you can actually, there's some help videos that you could do. But the market analysis, I think that is something that all agents should know how to do very well so that you can properly represent a buyer or seller and to give realistic expectations of where the values are for the neighborhood. So, or also you can also see the market trend. If just an instance for my Calusa market, I was asked to pull up a market analysis for 2011 and 2012 because somebody had passed away. You want to know what a house would have been worth in 2011 and 2012. So we did that, and then we pulled up 2014, and we noticed that the trend actually went up, and then it went down, and then it was starting to go up again. So there are those markets, and if you look at different years for different, in that particular neighborhood, you can do that on your market analysis. And the more you know your numbers, and the more you know how the trend's going. I told my sellers, I'd rather that you, when the trend's going down, I'd rather you sell here than sell here. Because I've already been at the market when it was up here, and that's when I started.